So we have the admin and admin username and password. Let's go ahead and sign in. And we are here. We have the web application. And let's go ahead and just create a new text file. Say hello from desktop, and we can open it. Okay, we can look at that activity. Okay, hello from desktop right there. We have the hello. Okay, and we have an Excel spreadsheet right here. Let's do 1, 2, highlight these. So awesome. This is so cool, guys. And it's just incredibly fast. And then now with the web viewer, I can see my other cursor here. So if I say like, hello from Android, I can see that right there in real time. So are you looking for a self-hosted, simple cloud storage solution that's faster than Nextcloud and that focuses on the simplicity of file storage and being able to modify those files with Collabora Office built into the web tool? Look no further than OpenCloud. This thing is wicked fast. It is, if you're used to using Nextcloud, OpenCloud is going to feel so fast on your clients, on both the desktop client and on your mobile client, and just in the web interactivity. So when you are navigating through the web, it is so fast. Now, if you're not familiar with OpenCloud, it is because it is relatively new on the block. You see, it was forked from Owncloud Infinite Scale, OCIS. And Owncloud Infinite Scale is also, in its own respect, an awesome tool. And the only reason why I haven't done a OCIS tutorial is because I know that OpenCloud had already been forked. I think it was earlier this year or late last year when the OCIS team for Owncloud basically jumped ship. They decided, hey, Owncloud, same story as the Nextcloud origin story, right? So the Owncloud Infinite Scale team felt like Owncloud wasn't prioritizing open source and their team as much as they should have, and they decided to jump ship. They forked it, and now it's OpenCloud. So why would you use OpenCloud instead of Nextcloud? It's just a lot faster. And if you just don't need the built-in integrated tools like the mail, the calendar, the chat, all of the Microsoft Teams equivalent, then you should probably just use OpenCloud. And if you want to add those kind of collaborative tools later, you can use different tools supported by that same company. But overall, OpenCloud supports Collabora integration. You can open up Word documents and open Office documents inside of the web browser. It works great. I'll show you a couple limitations when it comes to the mobile app. So the tools that we're going to set up in this tutorial are OpenCloud, of course. I'm going to be using a local DNS server. I already have AdguardHome set up. If you don't have a local DNS server, I do recommend having that for pretty much any of the cloud providers, OpenCloud, Nextcloud, or Owncloud, just because you're going to want those local rewrites of your domain so that your server stack can communicate with itself without going out to the internet. It doesn't really need to. So everything will be faster if you have a local DNS server. I'm going to be using AdguardHome. I have a tutorial for how to set that up. We're going to use Nginx Proxy Manager as our reverse proxy. It's just very easy to do. And then for external access, I might do a Cloudflare Tunnel as well as a Pangolin Tunnel. I have both set up already for previous tutorials, so we might just piggyback off of those. I'll show you the desktop application. We're using Collabora. Pretty straightforward, guys. They did a great job in setting up the compose files for us to make it really modular depending on what we want in our stack. So let's get it going. Let's check it out. Okay, guys, so let's navigate over to the OpenCloud GitHub repository where we're going to find instructions for setting up our Docker Compose project here. So there's multiple compose files and configs for each container that we might use in our stack. Really nice. All we have to do is basically do a git clone of this repository. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to copy this guy. And right here, I have a VS Code remote server connection here. So I have an SSH client and basically a SFTP client right here as well. I like using VS Code, like I say in all my tutorials, just because it's easy to show the command terminal as well as what active file I am looking at. So let's cd up to our Docker folder inside of our user folder, where I'm storing a folder for each of my Docker containers. And then let's go ahead and do a clone of that repository. So that's going to create an OpenCloud folder right here. So here we go. It already cloned it. OpenCloud Compose. Now I might just go ahead and change that name to OpenCloud for simplicity. And what we have is a Docker Compose file, like you'd expect. And we have a .env example file. So everything really is controlled for the most part in the .env file. We shouldn't really have to do much with the Docker Compose file. I might add in my DNS server just so that I get those internal rewrites for my domains. But that is about it. So let's go ahead and I'll use the command to copy the .env example to the .env. And that way you still have the example file if you want to reference it, and you can make sure that the .env is in your git ignore. So let's cd into OpenCloud and then copy that. And now we have our .env file that we can use. Okay, and let's just follow steps. So let's go ahead and set up our admin password. So we're going to go ahead and find this. So the initial admin password right here, we're just going to go ahead and set it to admin. That's what it would be for Owncloud OCIS, is just admin for username and password. We'll stick with that. Of course, when we get in there, we're going to create our own profile. We're going to delete this admin profile. So our own profile will have our own username and password, and there will no longer be an admin account. Okay, and the next thing I'll go ahead and set is the OpenCloud domain. Now, I do just highly recommend that you use a domain for OpenCloud or Owncloud or Nextcloud, because it's just going to make everything so much easier in the long run. So a domain that you own is great because it makes getting SSL certificates so much easier. You don't need to use self-signed certificates. So I'm, of course, going to use my Thomas Wildtech domain. And let's go with cloud.thomaswildtech.com. That's going to be the domain that we use for this app. And the next thing that we will set is the compose file variable, which is basically saying what compose files we want to include. So because I'm using an external, I'm using my own reverse proxy, then I don't need to include its built-in traffic reverse proxy. So let's scroll up to the compose file section. It gives us a number of examples. So I'm just going to copy and paste the real one below these examples. So we're obviously going to use the docker compose.yaml file. That's the base one for our OpenCloud container. We need that. And then the next one that we are going to use is the external proxy. So colon, and then paste that in there. We'll set up Collabora after we already get OpenCloud up and running. So we don't need the Collabora Docker Compose file just yet. But if we want to see what this is doing, so we have our, let's go ahead and save this. We have our Docker Compose file, right? And this has our OpenCloud container and everything that we need for our OpenCloud container. If we want to set it up to be used with our own Nginx Proxy Manager, let's take a look at that external proxy folder and look at the OpenCloud.yml. So what this is doing is it's appending additional information to the OpenCloud container. So now it's saying, hey, let's go ahead and do a port mapping of that 9200. So that's now exposing the IP for us to route Nginx to. We're not going to be using its built-in traffic reverse proxy. So that's all this file does. And when we do incorporate Collabora, we'll also use the Collabora external proxy so that we also expose those ports as well. So it's just really nice. We don't have to come in here and modify a whole bunch of stuff. Okay, so we have our Docker Compose and we have our external proxy. I am going to go ahead and switch insecure to false because I am going to be accessing this with my domain with HTTPS. So again, we'll come back to Collabora and the WAPI server domain. We will create domains for those as well, and make sure that we have local rewrites for those. Otherwise, the last thing that we really need are our bind mount variables. So the OC config directory and the OC data directory. So this is going to be like our config file that we want to persist. And the data directory is going to be where our files are actually going to be stored on the back end. So typically this is where you're going to want this to be on your larger hard drive, most likely, and the config file can just be on the local hard drive because it shouldn't really be taking up that much space. Now, I will probably just go ahead and mount these locally. So let's go ahead and set that config. And there is already a config folder in here, which is different. Of course, this is configuration for the containers with the YAML files and whatnot. So not to be confused with that config. So I'm going to put this in, I'll put it in a folder called app. So I'll create a folder here called app and then do config. And then I'll do the same thing with this one with the data, and I'll put that in app data like that. And then I'll go ahead and create those folders, which should prevent permission issues when it comes to the permissions on the bind mounts. So let's go ahead and create a folder for app. And then in here, I'm going to create a folder for config. And then I'm going to create another folder for data. So we already have those bind mount directories. Everything can just get written into those directories. Okay, so now we basically just need to have our DNS rewrite for our domain in our DNS server, and we need to have our proxy host route that domain to the port. So let's go ahead and do the proxy host. So I am just going to use my Nginx Proxy Manager instance. If you don't have a reverse proxy already, I have that set up in my npm folder right here. And if you want to use Nginx Proxy Manager, just click the link in the corner over there. Very easy to set up. Okay, I don't really want to go ahead and set this all up because I don't want it to be out of scope for this tutorial. So I already have all these other domains. We're just going to add one more. And then I already have a Wildcard SSL certificate. If you're not familiar with getting Wildcard certificates, make sure to check out that tutorial that I just mentioned. Very easy to set up. Okay, we're going to choose Force SSL. And we can include HSTS and HTTP2. So we got the certificate. Let's put in the domain. That was going to be cloud.thomaswildtech.com. Okay, we're doing HTTP to the port. Now I have my proxy running in host mode, so I can just use my localhost IP address. If you're running it in its own network, then you might need to use the local IP of your server. So that would be 192.168.402.48. That's the local IP of my server. I could put that here as well, but I'm just going to use the local host. Okay, and OpenCloud was listening to 9200. Go ahead and select WebSocket support and cache assets and block common exploits. So should be able to save that. Okay, now we have cloud.thomaswildtech.com. We just need to make sure we have the DNS rewrite. Now, if you don't have your own DNS server and you just want to use, Cloudflare Tunnel or something like that, you can do that. I do recommend having a DNS server. So get that set up. Again, link in the corner. Okay, so inside of my own AdguardHome here, Going to go to filters and then DNS rewrites. Then at the bottom, I'm going to hit add a DNS rewrite. Now this is very similar with Pi-hole if you have Pi-hole. So the domain is cloud.thomaswildtech.com. And then, so we're going to be routing this domain locally to the local IP of our server. So that's the 192.168.4.248. Go ahead and save that. And now we have that DNS entry. We have our proxy. So we pretty much have everything we need. The only thing I'm going to add in here is that I want OpenCloud to use my local DNS server. And that way, when it talks to itself through the domain or to Collabora, it is just using local rewrites. Okay, so just much more efficient you don't want this container to have to use Cloudflare Tunnel to communicate to its own stack. So we're going to put in the DNS 192.168.4. In this case, I have my DNS server running on my actual server, which is the 142. That's what the AdGuard was just showing. Oh, and just one more data directory that I forgot is the apps directory. If we use their like app store, kind of similar to Nextcloud, except there's hardly anything there really. So probably not going to use this, but we'll just go ahead and put it into this same app and then apps directory. So let's go ahead and create an apps directory in here too. And then we should be good to go. And I think we have everything. So now let's go ahead and just do our Docker compose up. Okay, and let it pull the images. Okay, and let's see if we can come over to cloud.thomaswildtech.com. And here we go. We got the OpenCloud sign in. So we have the admin and admin username and password. Let's go ahead and sign in. And we are here. We have the web application up and running. Let's go ahead and create our own user so that we're not using that admin. We don't want to keep that forever. So if we go over to admin settings over here, go to users, go to new user. Again, this app is just so fast, so much faster than the PHP app of Nextcloud. So username Thomas, do Thomas at thomaswildtech.com. You can set up the SMTP settings. I don't know what all kind of email notifications they have in here, but I haven't even come across a situation where I need email notifications. Let's do Thomas Wild. Just make sure that that is what I want it to be. Thomas Wild Tech. Yep. Okay. And then we're going to switch the role to admin. So edit role admin and then save. Okay. That way we should be able to log out now and then log in as Thomas. And now we're logged in as Thomas. Let's go ahead and delete the admin user because we just don't need it anymore. Delete. Okay, so before we get Collabora set up, let's go ahead and just play with a couple, text files. Let's look at our files here. So we have plain text and we have Markdown. We don't have the Collabora plugin yet, so we don't have all the Office document files. But I also just want to go ahead and let's set up the desktop application so we can interact with that now too. So I already have it installed, but the way that you would install it, just search for OpenCloud Desktop and then come to the GitHub. I believe that this does just link you to the Microsoft Store if you're using Microsoft. Otherwise, you can come to the GitHub and then go to the binaries. And then I think for Microsoft, it still just tells you to go to the Microsoft Store. Otherwise, for Mac OS and Linux, looks like they have files that you can download. So this will take you to the Microsoft Store. You just install it like any other Microsoft application. After you have that installed, you should have a OpenCloud icon, or it should go ahead and just ask you to set up your account. So for me, since I already have it installed, I will just show the app and then add another account. So the server address is the https://cloud.thomaswildtech.com. So we'll hit next. Okay, and then you need to authorize the desktop application, you can open it in the default browser or use copy URL. I think I'll just use copy URL. So that opened up Microsoft Edge. Let's go ahead and sign in. Go ahead and click allow. Login successful. You can now close this window, and then you see in my desktop application, it says I'm all set. So go ahead and finish. Okay, and so this created a OpenCloud 2 folder. Okay, and if I open up that OpenCloud 2 folder, we have personal and we have shares. So let's open up personal, and let's go ahead and just create a new text file. Say hello from desktop. And we can open it and we can just say, hello, save. Okay, we can look at that activity. Got hello from desktop uploaded. So pretty nice desktop application here. If I come in here and let's give this a little refresh. Okay, hello from desktop right there. We have the hello. So say hello back from web. Okay, I'll go ahead and hit save. Okay, and then momentarily you'll see sync activity. The hello from desktop has been updated. So that's great. Come in here. Hello from desktop. Hello back from web. Okay, so we have the sync going. Now, before I get the Android mobile application going, which came out only like a few weeks ago, I think. I've been really waiting on this. Let's go ahead and get Collabora installed. So the way that the Collabora works is that we're going to have our own domain for Collabora and our WAPI server, and our client applications need to be able to use that domain, as well as our OpenCloud server needs to be able to use those domains too. So we're going to create rewrites for those as well. So we're going to create 2 more DNS entries. I could do a wildcard, domain and just have that. But because I'm going to show you how to set up Pangolin, I actually need to be able to access the Pangolin server, which is not on my local server. So we're just going to do a domain for each of these. So let's do a collabora.thomaswildtech.com. Okay, and that's going to go to the same IP. Save that. And then we're also going to have a wapi.thomaswildtech.com and the same server. Okay, and we can see that I actually created a Collabora with my previous Nextcloud tutorial. We can see if I go to my Nextcloud here, I do have a Collabora image. I'm doing kind of the same thing with the DNS using 9980. So if I don't want these, if I want to be able to have 2 separate Collabora instances in my demo, I might use a different domain and might use a different port mapping. I think I'll just do that in case I ever need to come back to Nextcloud. So instead of the Collabora, let's just change that to be Collabora-OC for OpenCloud. And we'll use that as our domain. Just need to make sure that I remember to do that. Okay, so back to our OpenCloud Docker container. We are going to go to the web office folder, and we can see our Collabora Docker Compose file. So this does add some information here for the OpenCloud container, and it creates our WAPI server collaboration container, as well as our actual Collabora container. So we're going to need to enable this, and then we also have a Collabora.yml in the external proxy. So this is what's going to expose the ports. So again, I already have 9980 for my Nextcloud tutorial. So I think I'm going to actually change that to 9982 for that. So let's go ahead and save that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and add my DNS server to both of these containers as well, the collaboration as well as the Collabora. And that way, everything is basically using my DNS server. I like that because I get those logs. I know what these containers are trying to do and where they are sending information. So we need to enable those 2 compose files, and we can do that in our env file. So we can grab the web office Collabora file, and we need our external proxy Collabora file. Now, at this point, I'd probably also recommend enabling the Tika file, because that's just going to get, basically full text searching support for all of your files. It is going to take up more resources, so I think I'm just going to skip it for now. But yeah, you would just, put in a colon and then search and then Tika right here to enable those. Okay, and then we just need to add those Collabora definitions in here as well. So scroll all the way down here for the Collabora domain. I'm going to change this to Collabora-OC.thomaswildtech.com. And then the WAPI server domain is the wapi.thomaswildtech.com. And then I'm just going to go ahead and change the SSL verification to true. I want it to check that the connections are definitely using SSL. We don't need the SSL enable for Collabora itself because we're handling certificates with Nginx Proxy Manager ourselves. So let's save that, and let's just go ahead and configure our Nginx Proxy Manager to handle those domains as well. So let's add a proxy host for Collabora-OC.thomaswildtech.com. Okay, and then that is I'm using 9982 because I changed it to that. Otherwise, it would be 9980. This is the client side port. And again, I'm using localhost or host mode for Nginx Proxy Manager. Let's go ahead and add the WebSocket support and choose our Wildcard certificate. Force SSL. Do all these guys too. Okay, so now we have the Collabora, and then let's add the WAPI server. So wapi.thomaswildtech.com. 127.0.0.1 again. Okay, and then the WAPI server right here is the 9300. So I'm just going to set that. WebSocket support. Choose the SSL wildcard certificate. Okay, and everything should be routed accordingly. Let's go ahead and take it down. So let's do a docker compose down, and then let's take it back up. Docker compose up D. So we're going to pull the Collabora image right here. Okay, so that has finished pulling. Let's see if we can come in here and reload. And we can. So let's go to new. And now we have all of our Office type documents. So we can do an open document or a Microsoft Word document. Collabora should have pretty much the same user interface for the open versions versus the Microsoft versions. So let's try an open document. First, ODT file, .odt. Okay, and now we have our Word file here. Hello, world. And you can just see that it already has synced with my desktop application, which is great. So we can also switch it to dark mode, which of course I love, unless I really need to ensure that the color is right when it comes to the images and white backgrounds. In any case, that should be set up in real time. I'll go ahead and exit out of here, and I have hello from desktop. Okay, and then after writing that hello world, it says that the file has been updated, and so I've got 10 kilobytes here. I'll go ahead and open that with only Office. You can see that it does have my hello world right there in the preview. So that is looking great. I now have, let's go ahead and try a XLSX. So let's see, spreadsheet. Okay, and we have an Excel spreadsheet right here. Let's do 1, 2, highlight these. So awesome. This is so cool, guys. And it's just incredibly fast. Okay, next thing I want to do is set it up on my phone too. Okay, like I said before, OpenCloud was recently added to the Play Store. So let's go ahead and find that. OpenCloud, install, open. Now just keep in mind too, on Android, in order for you to actually use your local DNS, you might just need to make sure that you're not using private DNS. So if you search your settings for DNS, you turn off private DNS. Now, private DNS adds a little bit of security if you're using like an open Wi-Fi, although you should be using a VPN anyways. I turn it off so that I can use my local DNS server on my phone, although I'll show you how to do public access after this portion of the tutorial. Let's go ahead and open up OpenCloud, and we're going to go https://cloud.thomaswildtech.com. Okay, and then we're going to authorize our phone by coming in here and signing in. And then it's just going to allow us to authorize ourselves. And then boom, we are in. We've got the Office file. We have the text file. I can see the text file very easily. Now, the one difference with Nextcloud is that Nextcloud has the Collabora like built into the Nextcloud app, which is pretty cool. With OpenCloud or Owncloud OCIS, you do just need to install Collabora or OpenOffice separately and then open the file in that application. For me, it's not that big of a deal. I'm not really doing a ton of edits with the mobile app anyways, but what you would want to do is just go ahead and install Collabora. You can also use the Open in Collabora Online web. So we can do that. And then it's going to kind of have an embedded web tool. And this actually works great too. So not too big of a deal. You can use the embedded web app. It works great. Otherwise, what you might do is just go to the Play Store and download either Collabora. Yeah, download Collabora Office or only Office should work just as well. Okay, I'll just go ahead and open up the app. So no recent files in here. If I go back to OpenCloud and I click on the icon, okay, yeah, so now it just opens with Collabora and it feels native. So that's actually really nice. And then let's just see if I go into that Office file. So yeah, I feel like when you're using the external app, the Collabora app, the real-time updates might not be as good. So I'm gonna say hello from mobile. Hit the save button. Upload failed. So let's try using just the web viewer. And then now with the web viewer, I can see my other cursor here. So if I say like, hello from Android, I can see that right there in real time. So real-time collaboration, just use the embedded web tool, go and save that. And it's already there. It's right there in real time. Okay, so we have this all working locally. It's working beautifully. But what if we want external access? What if we want to be able to share documents with other people? We could, of course, do port forwarding, but that kind of has its own security issues. Or we can use a tunnel system through a VPS. So we can either use Cloudflare Tunnel, which is an awesome free service, or we can use our own Pangolin Tunnel. And I have tutorials for both of these. Check out the description below the video. Okay, so I'm going to use Proton VPN because I can do this for free without even creating an account. Let's say not now. And then I'm just going to hit connect. So now I know that I'm not using my own DNS server. And now I know that I'm going through Japan. So if I tried going to cloud.thomaswildtech.com, then it's not going to work because there's no public DNS entry for this. So we can use Pangolin or we can use Cloudflare Tunnel. I'll start with Pangolin because it's great, especially if you're using large files over 100 megabytes. You don't have to worry about anything like chunked file uploads. Everything's just going to work. Cloudflare Tunnel has a 100 megabyte file upload limit. So, if that's probably not going to affect you as much as like image would. So in your Pangolin configuration, we would go to add resource and then call this OpenCloud HTTPS resource. And then the domain is going to be cloud.thomaswildtech.com. Come down here and actually select it so that we're creating this resource. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and set authentication to false so that we don't have any kind of SSO layer on top of this. And then I'm just going to route this to my Nginx proxy. So I already have the tunnel set up. If you want to set up Pangolin, watch my video for setting that up. So this is going to port 443 so that Nginx handles that. Okay, and then depending on what reverse proxy you are using, you may or may not need to put that same domain, the cloud.thomaswildtech.com, here in the TLS server name or custom host header. So just keep that in mind if it doesn't work at first. Let's go ahead and save all the settings. I don't know if I have a wildcard DNS entry, so let's go ahead and just check my DNS entries real quick inside of Cloudflare, which I'm using as my DNS provider. So I'm going to come down to thomaswildtech.com, go to DNS. Okay, no, so I have Pangolin and I have image going to my IP address of my Pangolin server. So we're going to do the same thing with cloud. So let's go add record, and it's going to be called cloud. And then I'm going to use the same IP address for, this is my Pangolin server, not using Cloudflare's proxy. And then we're just going to do that right there. So let's check my phone because I'm not using my DNS server. I'm VPNing, right? And then let's see if I can try going here again. Okay, and it's not working. So I think I will go ahead and put this domain in here. So cloud.thomaswildtech.com. Go ahead and copy and paste that into the host header as well. Okay, and now it is indeed working. So now we have public access through my Pangolin tunnel. So as simple as that, you can go ahead and sign in the web browser. The mobile app should work too. So that's pretty awesome. Now, if we wanted to use Cloudflare Tunnel instead of Pangolin, because if you don't have a VPS, you might want to use Cloudflare instead. Pretty easy too. Let's go ahead and remove this DNS record. So we're going to delete that record. And then we're going to hop back over to our main account page, scroll down to Zero Trust, go to your networks tool, and then go to your tunnels. And if you don't already have a tunnel connected to your server, go ahead and create the tunnel or watch my tutorial. I already have a tunnel here. It's already set up. So we're just going to go to configure. And now we're going to go to our published application routes. This has recently changed. And so I'm going to do a similar thing here where I'm going to add a published application route. And this is going to be cloud, Thomas Wild Tech. Service is going to be HTTPS because we are going directly to our Nginx Proxy Manager. So that's the local IP address. And then same thing that we did with Pangolin, we're going to do here with the TLS. So we're going to do cloud.thomaswildtech.com right there. And then similarly for the host header, go ahead and just paste that same domain right there. Let's go ahead and save that. Okay, so now in just a few seconds, we switched from using Pangolin to using Cloudflare Tunnel. Let's see if I can hit the sign-in page again. Go ahead and refresh. And it's working. We're going through Cloudflare Tunnel now. So this is how you can have mobile access to your OpenCloud account. In the past, I've talked about using Zero Trust as well as MTLS to put a layer of protection in front of your applications. If you want to use MTLS, you will have to wait for my, you can use my Cloudflare MTLS tutorial to do that. but again, the app doesn't support its own client certificate for iOS. So the Cloudflare MTLS I've only been able to do with Android. So if you want to use MTLS, wait for my Pangolin tutorial on generating your own certificate. Otherwise, you can also integrate SSO providers. So if you have questions about that, let me know in the comments. Hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I do really like OpenCloud, so I'm happy to promote them. This is a great application that may or may not replace your Nextcloud. It certainly can replace your Owncloud OCIS. And that's a whole other discussion on its own, because I think there are questions as to how well supported OwnCloud OCIS is going to be going forward, since the team migrated to another company that supports open source tools. So if you're starting now, I would probably recommend that you just go with OpenCloud over OCIS, because I mean, these guys are obviously dedicated to supporting this tool. So hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I'll see you in the next one.